I've got about 45 acres. I love being on my tractor out here.
Hedge fund manager Brian Heywood is also a part-time farmer.
I took this and it was wild and turned it into something that was beautiful. I grow and bale my own hay.
Hay for the horses that trot around his sprawling Redmond farm. And off to the side, we have what the farm calls cowboy gold.
The manure has to get to a certain heat. I have a thermometer this big that we stick in the pile to see what the temperature is. It gets up to 180, it starts to, it'll.
You're really passionate about manure.
Well, and that's why I was joking that this is, I call this my when I'm doing this, it's my legislative session, right?
That joke would be lost on you if you didn't know that Heywood is behind the massive undertaking of getting 6 separate initiatives on the November ballot, in part trying to repeal several laws passed in recent years by the Democrat-controlled legislature.
Olympia sort of, it seemed like it was like losing touch with the common person, I guess.
But Heywood is no common person himself. Harvard-educated, wealthy, world traveler, and bilingual. Heywood is a conservative/libertarian who describes himself as complex, influenced by an Arizona childhood.
Grew up very poor, and you don't realize you're poor kind of as you're growing up poor, right? You don't realize it, and then suddenly you do.
Deep poverty to now spending $6 million of his own money to organize and collect millions of signatures. You're a multimillionaire. You could have just stayed quiet,
I could have,
right?
I could have, yeah, yeah.
Quiet. So why go into this fight?
Because like it's what I said before. Who's going to fight? Who's going to fight for it? No one's making the fight.
The 6 ballot initiatives include an income tax ban, removing restrictions on police pursuits, giving parents more rights to review educational materials and receive certain notifications, allowing people to opt out of the state's long-term care coverage, canceling the state's 7% capital gains tax, and repealing the Climate Commitment Act. Heywood blames the cap-and-trade program under the Climate Commitment Act for raising gas and utility prices while doing little to get rid of carbon emissions.
The cap and trade is probably the most regressive tax you could put on the economy because it hits every single person that has to commute to work.
Supporters of the measure would say that, yes, last year we had record high gas prices, but that gas prices have come down. That is true. And that there are other things that impact fuel prices and not just this tax.
Absolutely. But if you look at compared to any other state, we're on the West Coast, huge transportation advantages that other states don't have. And yet our costs are higher than compared to other states. We are enormously more expensive.
Despite the narrative, Heywood says his initiatives are not a Republican versus Democrat issue.
And our model suggests that about 57% of people that signed were Democrat or independent, and 43% were Republican. This is not a Republican screed. It was a common sense pushback against what I believe were some stupid, overly aggressive, radical progressive policies.
Heywood says not allowing police to pursue suspects in many cases is one example of going too far.
Police pursuit overwhelmingly polls among both sides. People think it's stupid that police have to sit there and watch a car get stolen and drive off and they can't do anything about it.
As for the capital gains tax, Heywood sees it as just the beginning to an income tax.
All the speculation, oh, he's a hedge fund guy, and so he only's doing it for the capital gains tax, right?
Are you?
No, I can go to Florida and buy a $7 million house and have no income tax and change my, like Jeff Bezos or something, right? I could do that easily. This doesn't, from a business point of view, this makes no sense for me to do it this way. I'm much more worried about the economy of Washington.
And that economy is also what some lawmakers say will be negatively impacted if Heywood succeeds. They say it will wipe away billions of extra dollars down the road for the state.
We've had $19 billion in surpluses over the last 5 years. $19 billion, and never were they able to find the willpower to spend it on all these things that suddenly we're going to crash the economy. It's a bunch of Chicken Littles crying for something. They got this big money pot that just came in this year, way more than they expected. They're trying to figure out ways to spend it.
Hannah Kim, Fox 13 News.